We were sweating daily and 40-degree heat and 20 kilos of luggage, and you're cycling uphill. I'm not selling it. I'm not, this doesn't sound fun. It was fun, trust me. Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. Now, today I wanted to talk about the cycle tour that I did with my partner Yessa and how we ended up in Singapore, cycling all the way to China in about 10 months, I think it took us. So if you're interested in that, then keep on watching and we'll get straight into it. Now, I wanted to say first up, I am not a cyclist. I'm not a cyclist. I don't cycle. I think the last time I had ridden a bike, I was probably 16. So by no means do I describe myself as a cyclist or an adventure seeker person. I'm no adrenaline junkie or anything like that. I actually came up with the idea. I didn't come up with the idea at all. My father is a little bit of a cyclist. He is that classic above 40 middle-aged man in Lycra. That's my dad, and I love him. Very sweet, bless him. But he had actually suggested that I travel Asia on a bike. He had done it a couple of years before and absolutely loved it, raved about it. I think he was slowly planting the seeds the following years just to see if he could change my mind and get me on the back of a bike to see Southeast Asia. And it worked, actually, because it's exactly what I did. And he helped me in all of my preparation. He had been to a lot of countries and cycled before, and we had obviously decided to do it a little bit differently. We wanted to camp the whole time, so we freedom camped basically in every country we went to. We freedom camped in every country we went to in Southeast Asia. We also stayed in hostels, but we did manage to find camping places in every country, and we had a lot less money, so we didn't eat at any restaurants. We only ate street food and locally made food, and food that was given to us by people who took us in, I guess. The original plan was, when I left New Zealand, I wanted to go to India, and I had no real clear vision of what I wanted to do there. I just wanted to hang out for maybe 6 months, spend all the money that I had saved, and be a hippie bum in India. After speaking to my father and him planting all those seeds those years before, I had decided that going to Asia was probably a really good idea. And then on top of that, doing it on the back of a bike seemed like the perfect idea. So initially I was going to just do Southeast Asia, and then the plan just grew. At some point, you know, we were going to start in Thailand and just do Thailand and Cambodia and Laos, and yeah, it just worked out better that we could land in Singapore. Why not start from Singapore, and why not tack on this country and tack on that country? And we also ended up going to Indonesia halfway through our Malaysia trip, just tacking on things. And I think having such a vague idea and such a vague plan enabled us to really make the most of being on the back of a bike and having all this time up our sleeves and letting those decisions form naturally and organically, and it made the experience the best that it could have been. Now, if anyone wants to nerd out on bike specs, I actually wrote a blog while I was traveling, and I use the term blog very lightly because what I was actually doing was emailing my family our updates. Knowing that we were going to be wild camping and not staying in hostels, we didn't have a lot of access to the internet, which was fine by us, was not a real big issue. But obviously my family wanted to know that we were still alive and still cycling while we were in the jungle in the middle of nowhere. So every couple of days I would send through an email about the places that we had gone to and the places that we had been. My dad had took it upon himself to upload it onto a cycling collective blog post page, and it accidentally became quite successful. So if anyone is looking for the Bex bikes, if anyone is looking for the bike specs and wants to nerd out on the gear that I took, I actually listed it all in on my blog, and that goes for the rest of the trip. So in every single country, I mention the places that we went to, the people that we meet, and there's obviously some photos intertwined in there as well. I will leave the link below if you want to check it out. And if I do say so myself, I think it was very well written for someone who was typing on an iPad at 10 p.m. at night after riding for 9 to 10 hours on the back of a bicycle in 40-degree heat. So, you know, I pat myself on the shoulder. I think I did a very good job. First thing is first, you need to catch a flight with your bike. Now, we had bike boxes, and I will just say as a word of warning, no single item can go on an airplane that weighs more than 32 kilos. Even if your luggage allowance is above 32 kilos, no single item is allowed to be more than 32 kilos. So for me to arrive at the airport with my 40-kilo bike box, with my bike frame, my whole bike's taken apart, everything's ready, everything's prepped, all my panniers are in there, all of my luggage. I had one bike box and then one carry-on bag, and that was going to be it. To find out literally like in half an hour before my flight left that I can't take it, and then I had to leave the airport, get a bag, separate out all my luggage, like everything was strewn out across the floor on the airport, and they're calling my flight over the loudspeakers, and I literally was like, I'm not gonna make this flight. Like, here I am, I've done all this preparation for this massive trip, and I'm gonna miss my flight. I'm gonna miss my flight out of Australia. Anyway, I made the flight. We can calm down. I made the flight. I made the flight, but it was a lesson. Nothing can go over 32 kilos. Now, on most flights, on most airlines, you can actually take a bike for free. You do not have to pay extra oversized luggage or anything like that, as long as it fits into a bike box, which most bikes normally do. You deflate your tires, all of that, and you pack it all up. It fits straight into a bike box, and that counts as your total check-in luggage. So if you've got 30 kilos of checked-in luggage, your bike might be 12 kilos, and then you still have another 18 kilos to use for yourself, for your gear. We probably rode with about 20 kilos each. We obviously had a lot more luggage than other people because we were camping. So we had sleeping bags, sleeping mats, a yoga mat at one point, and like tent poles, pegs, all of that stuff. Now, the benefits of sleeping in a tent was that we didn't have to make it to a certain place before we could stop for the day. We could have a shitty day of riding, stop halfway and think, let's just stay here. Now, each technique was different in each country of how to find a place to sleep, depending on what area of the country we're in and the legal rules that surrounded free camping in that land. And I'll get into more of that in each of the country videos that are to come. Now, I thought I knew what I was getting myself into when I signed up to cycle across Southeast Asia. I don't want to say that I was completely naive about the situation, but after hearing my father's stories and reading a lot of other cycle blogs, I thought, you know what, this is for me. This is so off the beaten track. This is how everyone should explore a country. And I still believe that totally. But there was a massive shift of my expectations versus reality after about 6 months of being on the road. Like, the first 3 months were super cruisy, and well, I don't want to say they were super cruisy. We were sweating daily and 40-degree heat and 20 kilos of luggage, and you're cycling uphill. I'm not selling it. I'm not, this doesn't sound fun. It was fun. Trust me, it was fun, and it was worth it. I swear to God. I just don't know if I would do it again tomorrow. Does that sound right? Yeah. I loved it. Didn't love every minute of it, but this was one of the best things I've ever done, hands down. Totally recommend it for anyone. I think if I can do it, literally anyone can do it. Literally anyone can do it. Hey guys, so I just wanted to jump on and better explain our budgeting side of things. So we left with roughly $10,000 all up, with a couple of birthdays and some Christmas money put in there. We aimed to spend about $1,000 per country, and we visited 9 countries in total. We were away for 10 months. Some countries we spent less than a month in, some countries more. The aim was $1,000 per month and $1,000 per country. So that was inclusive of all tickets and visas and other transport costs on top of cycling for free. We would aim to spend maybe $10 a day. Sometimes countries were more expensive and some countries were less expensive. So about $70 to $100 a week. And then the extra money budgeted for that country was then put towards visa costs or bike repairs or accommodation costs if we needed them, treats, extra things that were unexpected. And that was all put into the budget as well. But knowing that we could cut our transport costs massively and eat very, very cheaply in Asia were 2 massive things that enabled us to travel as a couple, as 2 people in Asia for 10 months at roughly $10 a day. I mean, that's so cheap. It blows your mind. It blows my mind how cheap that trip was. Like I said in my earlier video, when you're traveling, your biggest costs are your accommodation, your travel between places, and your food. And I think food in Southeast Asia is so ridiculously cheap, it's not a massive cost. Our accommodation was our tent, and that was free. So I want to say 80% of the time we slept in our tent, 10% of the time we slept with people that literally would like force you to stay with them. And then the other 10% of the time we were either working for our accommodation or we had actually paid to stay somewhere to have a warm shower or recoup and sleep in an actual bed for the night. Now, we started in Singapore and we headed north. So we cycled up to Malaysia and we spent quite a lot of time on the west coast. We ducked across to Sumatra in Indonesia and cycled around there, and back to Malaysia for another couple of weeks. After Malaysia, we went north into Thailand, into South Thailand, and we went sort of that way across, and then we cycled up through Myanmar and then back in midway through Thailand. And we basically sped across the second time. We did a lot of hitchhiking and we went to Cambodia. I'm going to warn you now, we did not like Cambodia. I don't have any feelings for that country. Was not the best country that we went to, so we did not spend that much time there. We then headed north and spent a lot of time in South Laos, and then we cut across and went to Vietnam, went north through Vietnam, spent a little bit of time of the north, and then we went into South China. Now, once we got to China, we shipped the bikes to Beijing because our visa time wouldn't allow us to cycle the distance, because it was like 6,000 kilometers from the south of China up to Beijing. So we shipped the bikes to Beijing after working in a hostel in the mountains for a month. And then we spent the second month in China catching trains. Their transport system is amazing. Anyway, we spent the rest of the time in China catching trains, and we left Beijing and we flew back to Europe. So that was our rough idea of where we went and what countries we went to. We roughly spent, I want to say, like a month in each country, obviously 2 in China, and I think we might have done 2 in Malaysia as well, but the other countries were all roughly a month. We overstayed our visa in Myanmar, and I will explain in our Myanmar video how we did that and how it's really easy and you could probably do it too. But then then there was countries like Cambodia, and we were there for like 2 weeks and then we left. So I want to say on average we probably spent a month in each country. Now, my next video will be like a Singapore and Malaysia mashed together, and I'll be talking about all things Malaysian. So tune in next week for my Malaysia update and how I felt about riding on a bike for the first time with all of my luggage on the back of it, what I thought I had bitten off. Now, in the meantime, if you want to check out the blog, I will leave the link in the description box below, and you can go on and read in detail all of the adventures that we got up to. But until then, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.